The discovery of an ancient artifact bearing an indecipherable script is always an exciting prospect for archaeologists. After all, it's one thing to uncover some ruins or pottery, or even an entire lost city. But it's another matter entirely if you can't figure out what that stuff actually means. Hi, it's me, and this is my channel. And yes, we are indeed going to talk about Rosetta Stones today. Because while we're pretty familiar with the famous stone that helped scholars understand Egyptian hieroglyphics, there are many other examples of objects that have acted as Rosetta Stones for other ancient languages. So let's decode some ancient civilizations together, shall we? The first example we're going to look at is untechnically a Rosetta Stone, because it's not a stone at all. It's a wax tablet. But this little guy is called the Diplon Master. And it's the earliest piece of prose written in Greek that we have ever found. Discovered in 1883, during excavations at the Athenian Agora, the Diplon Master was thought to be around 2,500 years old. That is, until a new analysis in 2016 determined its true age to be closer to 7,000 years old, making it 3 times older than the famous Linear B tablets from the Mycenaean civilization. This would make it the oldest surviving piece of writing in Greece by over 1,000 years. The inscription reads, "These letters belong to the man who is called Nikon, son of Terenon. If anyone knows where he has gone, let him tell me." We know that much. But the rest of the text remains a mystery. Scholars seem to agree on how to read the rest of the inscription. Experts are still debating whether it was written by someone literate or if it's just someone imitating the way writing looks. We don't know yet. So your guess is as good as anyone's, really. Do you think you can figure out the rest of this inscription? Let us know in the comments below, and maybe you'll end up winning a prize someday. Sometimes all you need to translate an unknown script is a bit of common sense. Take, for instance, the Danube Stone Circle. Archaeologists discovered this in 1993 on a small island off the coast of Denmark. It's basically a standing stone that someone carved into a flat surface and then inscribed with a whole bunch of random symbols. The crazy thing is that almost all of the symbols were easily recognizable objects, like a house, a boat, a bird, some trees, a sun, a woman, a man, and a snake. At first glance, this might look like a kind of ancient Aztec calendar. But you'd probably be right on the money if you guessed that these symbols were just what they appeared to be. Pictures of things. These made the rock monolith one of the first known examples of a proto-writing system, which is a precursor to an alphabetic writing system. But rather than being indecipherable, the runic characters here are quite easy to understand. Each symbol represents a word, so you can just string the symbols together and get a rough idea of what the inscription says. In this case, it seems to say something like, "Here is the end of Athos stone that marks the boundary of his property." Again, not exactly the most thrilling archaeological discovery. But it's important to remember that every little step forward brings us closer to understanding these early civilizations. And besides, this particular find had a much bigger impact on our understanding of history than you might think. You see, this monolith helped prove that literacy existed in pre-Christian Scandinavia long before Christian missionaries arrived in the region. These prehistoric people weren't illiterate peasants after all, but were using their own language to record historical events. Now scholars are able to read many inscriptions left by these ancient Scandinavians, thanks to the Danube Stone Circle. Another fascinating example of a real-life Rosetta Stone is the kite's tail stele. This artifact was discovered in 1835 by British soldiers who were looting an ancient site in Iraq, now called Nimrud's Day. They found the stele half buried in the ground and covered in debris. So they took it back to Britain, where it sat in a museum for decades. No one could figure out what language it was written in, so it wasn't properly translated until the 1950s, when a scholar named E.A. Spicer finally cracked the code. It turned out to be written in Akkadian, one of the earliest known Semitic languages. But it wasn't just written in Akkadian. It was also written in Assyrian, Nevi. This two-language script allowed scholars to gain insight into both languages and learn more about this obscure culture that flourished. Between 900 BC and 700 BC, they became known as the Neo-Assyrian Empire. And thanks to the kite's tail stele, we know that they wrote in a cursive style of cuneiform. Unfortunately, the empire fell apart soon after, and most of their settlements were destroyed. But this bilingual stele is helping researchers learn more about their history. Third, there are also examples of real-life Rosetta Stones from alphabets we already know. Take, for instance, the Behistun inscription. This is a nearly 3,000-year-old stone pillar that has become famous for helping scholars decode the Elamite language. The Behistun inscription was created by Darius the Great, the king of the Achaemenid Empire. The inscription takes up about 200 lines and covers a vast array of topics including land grants, economic policies, and even military expeditions. It was originally written in Old Persian, but was also recorded in Elamite and Babylonian. We already knew what the Old Persian said, but deciphering the other two scripts opened up a whole new world of knowledge. Before the Behistun inscription, all we knew about Elam was that they were living in the region of southwestern Iran. But the inscription helped us learn that they had their own alphabet, and that they were using it to communicate with neighboring regions. The Behistun inscription helped scholars discover many other amazing things about the Elamites, such as their religion and their customs. Thanks to this relic, the Elamite language is no longer dead. Of course, we can't talk about Rosetta Stones without mentioning the Rosetta Stone. There are literally dozens of similar stones that helped scholars crack ancient codes. Take, for instance, the Rosetta Decipherment tablet. This tablet is a tiny fragment of baked clay, inscribed with a few lines of Linear B script. It was found in Greece, at the site of the Mycenaean palace of Pylos, and it proved to be the key to cracking the Linear B cipher. It's funny that we've reached the point in human history where we take certain scripts for granted. For example, we can all read English, but just a few hundred years ago, Linear B was just another undeciphered collection of squiggles. Today, though, we can thank the Mycenaean kings for giving us such a handy-dandy gift. Without the Mycenaean Linear B script, we wouldn't have had the Rosetta Stone. Without the Rosetta Stone, we might still be scratching our heads trying to figure out hieroglyphics. Speaking of, did you know that there is a second Rosetta Stone? Well, it's not as fancy, but it's just as useful. The second Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1859, and it's basically just a brick with some faded markings on it. Unlike the famous stone, this one is written only in hieratic, a type of Egyptian script. But that makes it even more useful for translating hieroglyphics. It's basically like comparing apples to apples. By examining the Rosetta Stone and the second Rosetta Stone side by side, historians have been able to compare the two scripts and understand the nuances of each one. Thanks to these two artifacts, we can read everything from tomb inscriptions to wedding invitations. And as you can imagine, that's given us an intimate glimpse into everyday life in ancient Egypt. So there you have it. From the Diplon Master to the second Rosetta Stone, there are plenty of examples of artifacts that have helped us crack ancient codes. Maybe one day you'll make a similar discovery and help unlock a mystery that has stumped historians for centuries. And hey, if you want to brush up on your history knowledge, you might want to check out another one of my videos. I've got lots of stuff on ancient Egypt. Just search for more information.